Am I the a-hole for spending my daughter's wedding fund on a car and a trip after she got eloped? My only child, Diana, and her now husband started dating in college and had been engaged just before the pandemic hit. After not being able to really plan for over a year due to everything, they decided a couple weeks ago to just take a trip, just the two of them, and elope. I'm very happy for them, and honestly, I'm glad to not have to deal with the stress of wedding planning. I had about $35,000 set aside for her wedding in an account I've had for a long time. After she told me the news, I was thrilled to be able to put it to other use. My car has been having some trouble lately, so I decided to just treat myself and get a new car in cash with the wedding fund. I paid about $30,000, and with the rest of the money, my wife and I decided we would take our little getaway. I didn't think this was controversial. Then, this past weekend, Diana was over and asked that since I didn't have to pay for a big wedding, if they could get the money to use towards a down payment. I told her sorry, but that's how I paid for my new car and will be paying for my upcoming trip. To say she was upset is an understatement. I figured I'd just let her cool off. But then last night, my ex, her mom, called me to telling me I made a selfish move and said some more things I won't repeat. I never told her it was a wedding or whatever she wanted fund, so I didn't think I did anything wrong. Would really appreciate some non-biased perspectives. Edit. Sorry if I worded this poorly, I'm not the best writer. I'm a blue-collar guy. She knew that I had money put aside for her wedding. It was something we talked about when she first got engaged over a year ago, but it's come up at times before that too. Just something I planned for due to having a daughter. I never told her it was a fund for her to use on whatever. I paid for her college and planned on paying for her wedding. But beyond that, didn't plan on paying her way through life. My parents couldn't help me out financially in life, so my goal was to pay for her schooling and wedding so she could start adulthood on the right foot. I felt like I accomplished that. We are far from wealthy. I did not go to college, but I always did my best to save and be responsible with money so I could help her start off the right way. I never expected to be paying her way through life. Maybe it's a dated traditional mindset, but I always believed after your kids officially start their own family, your job as a provider has been accomplished, and it is their turn to provide for themselves. Now it's my time to put myself and own finances as #1 priority. I had her very young, 19, and still have a lot of working years left until retirement, hence the need for a reliable car. Now for the top comments. Note: OP paid for his daughter's entire college tuition and living expenses, so she's starting out in life with zero college debt. Isn't that gift enough? Not a hole. I can hear where the daughter is coming from. She feels that the money was supposed to be used for her, and since her big wedding didn't happen, she should be able to use it for another purpose. That said, she's being entitled here. If she discussed this situation with her dad beforehand, we decided to elope. Would you be open to giving us the wedding money to spend on a house, etc.? Then they might have worked something out. Our dad could have said no. The issue is that she assumed it was still hers and is now disappointed that they can't buy a house right away and is behaving childishly. OP, you are not an a-hole. Daughter is allowed to be disappointed, but not an ungrateful entitled brat. Especially since you paid for all her schooling. Not an a-hole. Parents paying for or contributing to a wedding is always a bonus. Whether you had it in a separate account or you would have paid out of your normal accounts, still your money. If she truly felt she was entitled to this money, then she should have explicitly had a discussion with you prior to eloping. Like, I think we're going to skip the big wedding and just elope. How would you feel about using that money to help us toward a house? That's exactly what she should have done. Ask. It doesn't sound like Opie would have given it to her, but who knows? It was a bold assumption of hers to think that money was sitting there for her to do whatever she wanted to with it. A wedding is for the whole family, not just the bride and groom. I'm going to give a tentative not a hole, but realistically, this largely comes down to how the fund was discussed and handled between you and your daughter, and you're not very clear about that in the original post. A friend's parents had a wedding fund for her, and while I'm not super clear about how it was discussed privately, she was able to use what she didn't spend on the wedding toward her honeymoon and house. I wouldn't go so far as to say that would be assumed, but again, it would come down to the understanding between you and your daughter, and we don't really know what that was like. Agreed. I can definitely see conversations about your wedding fund leading her to believe it was her fund. If Opie never said exclusively a wedding fund, I absolutely can see why she would think that. And it's not an unreasonable request to put your wedding fund toward down payment. I know someone who asked her parents if she could put most of her wedding fund toward a down payment and have a smaller wedding, and they enthusiastically said yes, because the understanding that it was her fund to use towards something big that was probably going to be a wedding, because that's usually the biggest expense. Low-key, you're the a-hole for not discussing something you've been referring to as hers before you spent it, so she knew that she wasn't going to see any of that money for even a honeymoon or anything. Final response. This blew up way more than expected overnight. A lot of people have inserted their own assumptions out of nowhere. Promises that never happened, tension between stepmother, riches I don't have, an obsession with her getting married even though I said I was relieved she eloped, etc. Which is odd. Basically, what I've gathered from the vast majority is that I didn't do anything wrong, but I should have communicated more clearly. I thought that I was crystal clear, but I see now that I could have been even more clear. Thank you everyone for your time. Now for the next story. Am I the a-hole for kicking my son out and threatening to take his tuition money after he trashed my house and crashed my car? My son turned 18 a month ago, and when he did, he asked if he could drive my car. Brand new RR. I of course said no. Last week, March 23, me and my wife had to go on a business trip and wouldn't be back until April 3. So we decided to send our 4 younger kids to my parents, but our oldest didn't want to go, so let him stay home. In the past, he's always proven to be responsible. Well, another son, 12, decided it was a good idea to eat 6 raw eggs, because apparently he thought it would make him stronger. Surprise, it didn't. He got sick and had to be taken to the hospital. We decided that one of us should head back to check on him, so I came back, March 26. When I got back, I got an Uber to the hospital to check on him, then I went to my parents and check on my other kids, and finally I went home to check on my oldest. When I got there, my garage was open and my RR was gone. My front door was open as well, so I thought we were robbed or something. And when I saw the inside of my house, I thought that it confirmed that. It looked like it was ransacked, except nothing was gone, just broken and out of place. I was terrified that my son was kidnapped because he was gone and he wasn't picking up his phone. Well, my car was gone, my house was destroyed, and my kid was missing. So, of course, I called the cops. Well, hours later, while police were investigating my house and looking for my son, and I was on the phone with my frantic wife, he pulled up in my driveway with my wrecked car and his friend in the front seat. Apparently, he threw a party, and when it was over, he decided to go for a joyride crashing my car. Of course I was pissed, so I kicked him out and told him not to come back. When my wife got home, I told her the situation and she said that I was overreacting and I should be happy that he was safe. She invited him over and said that I should apologize. And this boy had the damn nerve to say to me, "Well, next time just let me drive the car." And I tell you, I've never been so pissed at someone so much in my life. I went off and told him that he had 3 months to find a way to pay to get my car and house fixed. And if he didn't, then he's going to have to find a new way to pay for college next fall, implying that I was going to take the money meant for his tuition. And told him not to call me or return to my house if it had nothing to do with the damages, and kicked him out again. My wife called me a selfish a-hole, and perhaps she's right, but I'm still pissed while writing this. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole, but your kids sound like afterthoughts, and your oldest is probably resentful. Not the a-hole, and you need to have a talk with your wife about how this behavior is unacceptable. She seems to be fine with it, and that is especially troubling because it means you won't be able to correct it with one parent undermining you. Everyone sucks here. Kid, obviously. You for not aligning with your wife before doling out consequences. Wife, because she should be pretty hacked too, and I'm guessing she's let him have his way too often. Regarding the consequences themselves, honestly, I think they're reasonably proportionate to your kid's a-hat attitude. Appalling lack of respect and horrible behavior. He needs a serious wake-up call. Not the a-hole. Yes, it should have crossed your mind to ask if he was okay, but your wife needs to get up to speed. Your adult son, because that's what he is now as he is 18, threw a freaking party trashing your house. Your home, The literal biggest investment you'll ever make aside from life insurance or a child. He then followed this up by wrecking a car with a friend who could have died due to her spoiled son's negligence. All because Daddy told me I can drive this car. And instead of being remotely remorseful, he comes back and basically tells you both to your face, well, it's your fault because he told me no. Son or not, I would be pressing charges against him. It's not cool at all that your wife is trying to be mad at you and holds no anger at him. How's that happening? My mom would be the first to pop off. The next story is titled, Am I the a-hole for not immediately rushing to my partner's daughter after she was hit by a car? I, female 34, have been with my partner, Jeff, male 36, for around 6 years. I have 2 daughters, Meg 10, Charlie 8, and Jeff also has 2 daughters, Alice 12, Sarah 9. We have 2 sons together, Jack 4, Lucas 2. About 6 months ago, Alice was hit by a car and badly injured. Jeff was at work, and my sister had dropped her 5-year-old and 3-year-olds off with me to play with my boys. Alice and Meg had taken their scooters to the local shop to buy some sweets. We live in a pretty safe town, and I'm happy to let the girls go to the shops and ride their scooters or bikes around, as long as one of the older girls is with them. Meg came dashing home crying that Alice had been hit by a car and was badly hurt. Meg was hysterical, and it was really hard to get any clear information from her. But she was able to tell me eventually that it was about a 10-minute scooter ride away, and that a lady was with Alice and had called an ambulance. I tried to run to my neighbor to see if she could look after the younger kids while I went back out with Meg, but she wasn't home. My car doesn't have space for all of the kids, or enough car seats for my nephews as well as my sons. I rang Jeff and his brother who lives local a few times, as well as Alice's mom and my sister, and couldn't get through anyone. I didn't want to take all of the kids with me by foot as it would take too long to get them there, and I also didn't want them to see Alice hurt, but I couldn't leave them home alone. Eventually, I got hold of a friend who promised to be there in 5 minutes to mind the kids. By the time I got to the accident site, the ambulance had already taken Alice away. She broke her leg badly and had a concussion, but is otherwise on the mend. She was really upset to be left with a stranger at the accident site and has had nightmares about it. Jeff was also really upset, but understood that I couldn't get there. However, few of Alice's mom's family have been angry at me, saying that I would have gotten there faster if it was Meg. I can't deny that I probably would have been a lot more upset and panicked if it was Meg. But equally, I tried everything I could think of to get there but not leave the other kids in danger. Am I the a-hole? Should I have left the kids in the house with Meg or found some way to get all down to the accident site with me? Now for the top comments. You're the a-hole for some all-around parenting issues that culminated in this situation. Neither the 12 or 10-year-old have a phone, but you were letting them go around town? You think one of the older girls is okay to be in charge for that, but not to watch the 4 toddlers at home? Or she could watch 2 toddlers and you take the other 2 with you? You're babysitting extra kids without the ability to drive them anywhere in an emergency? You reached out to 4 different people and none of them even answered a text or call. Not even the mom whose kids you were babysitting? Why didn't your daughter or the woman who called 911 also call you instead of having the kids scooter 10 minutes home to you? How throwback are all of you when it comes to phones? And you admit you would have handled this differently if it were your biological child. For someone with this many kids and extras you apparently babysit, you seem woefully unprepared physically and emotionally for the type of emergencies that could arise. The oldest, 12, one would have been an okay age to look after the toddlers, or at least half of them, had she not been the one hit by the car. 10 years old, the one who came home, is not an age to leave at home looking after toddlers by themselves. Right? I think people are forgetting that there was a 2, 3, 4, and 5-year-old there. No 10-year-old would be able to manage that by themselves. As a father of step and biological children, seeing you admit elsewhere in the comments that you love your other kids more and you would have found a solution for your bio kid really upsets me. Offhand solution: the 8/9-year-olds can sit with the toddlers latched in a playpen while you freaking sprint to the child hit by a car. Children have no sense of time or distance. That 5 minutes was probably more like 2 minutes. She could have died with only a stranger to comfort her. Her sister came as fast as she could to get help and watched you do nothing. You're the a-hole. Edit. Lots of folks saying the older kids couldn't possibly handle the younger. I disagree fully, especially in emergencies. But everyone, including me, seems to be forgetting a key point. She had a car. She simply couldn't fit 5 kids in it to get to the 6th. Putting aside the fact that why do you only have a vehicle that you can't fit a family in, as there may be financial reasons. Why the hell not put the youngest kids in the car and leave the eldest home? The point is, there were multiple ways to solve this problem and Opie pursued none of them, while clearly admitting she would have done so for her real kids because she loves them more. Honestly. Edit. Thank you for your honest judgment. A lot of you are saying what I feel. I honestly don't know what I would have done if it had been Meg that was hurt. The guilt is eating me up inside that I would have somehow found a solution for her, but I just can't think of what that solution would have been. The thought that I would have somehow found one if it had been Meg is hard to live with. I'm going to speak with Jeff tonight and show him this post. I do love Alice and Sarah, but I just can't help that I love my biological kids more. I don't know what's wrong with me. We only have the girls one weekend a month and in the holidays, but that isn't an excuse. I do love them, but you are all right. They deserve more. Now for the last story. Am I the a-hole for only punishing my stepson and not my son, even though they both broke each other's laptops? I'm, female, a mom of 2. Chris, 16 bio, and Sammy, 13 stepson. I've been married to Sammy's father for over 4 years. The boys argue sometimes, but nothing huge, just minor everyday issues. And since my husband is busy all the time, he's a nurse, I handle the boys' issues. Last week, Chris was bringing Sammy's laptop from his rooms and Sammy asked. Chris unfortunately fell off the stairs, injured his knee, and Sammy's laptop broke. Sammy was mad, although it was an accident. I told him I'd get it fixed quickly. However, he kept bringing it up and arguing with Chris about it even after Chris apologized. The next day, Chris showed me his laptop and was crying, saying Sammy did it to get even. That wasn't acceptable behavior. Sammy didn't deny it. In fact, brag about it and said Chris will learn not to mess with his stuff. I was so mad at him, I told him he made a mistake and told him he was grounded. My husband told me to hang on a second and ask why I only punished Sammy, although Chris broke his laptop. I said it's different. Chris didn't mean it. It was an accident. But Sammy planned to and damaged Chris's laptop. My husband called me ridiculous since it's the same outcome. Said it's fair to ground Chris too, but I refused. We started arguing, and my husband told me what I'm doing doesn't look good because I'm showing favoritism and it'll ruin the kids' relationship. I insisted it was unfair to ground both kids, and he insisted I was playing favorites. Sammy's upset already. I took both laptops to the store to get them fixed, and my husband sent me a text with the word favoritism typed like this, saying he handled the entire thing the wrong way. Intent matters here. Chris broke Sammy's laptop accidentally. Sammy broke Chris's laptop on purpose. While it's true that both laptops are broken, only one was broken out of malice. Your assessment of the situation and who got punished is absolutely correct and not favoritism. Not an a-hole. The purpose of grounding is to learn. Does Chris learn not to fall? Probably not. But Sammy should learn not to break his stepbrother's stuff. Definitely not an a-hole. Not an a-hole. One was an accident. One was deliberate and cruel sabotage. It's absurd that your husband doesn't see that. Also kind of absurd that you seem to be fully responsible for caring both kids because your husband has a job? That text sounds like it came from a teenage boy. Yes, they aren't the same actions at all. Basing it on results is stupid. Not an a-hole. Your sons did not behave equally, so they shouldn't be punished equally. Intention matters. This is not a controversial idea. This is why manslaughter is not punished the same as premeditated murder. Your husband is the one showing favoritism, and he needs to get it through his head that one of his sons destroyed property on purpose in an act of revenge. The thing that will ruin your sons' relationship with each other is if it goes without consequences. Am I the a-hole for refusing to go to the same college as my stepsister? I'm 17, female, a senior in high school, and making my college decision soon. I got into some really great schools for my major, and I'm really excited for college. My parents divorced when I was 7, and I was living with my mom until she died when I was 14. I have only been living with my dad and his wife for the past 3 years. My dad remarried Lisa when I was 9, and she has a daughter Jan my age. My mom's family has been saving for me to go to college. My maternal grandparents have a 529 for me that they and my mom had been contributing to since I was a baby. It has about 110,000 right now. Jan has really bad social anxiety and clung to me when I started living with my dad. I guess because Jan didn't really have many friends before I came along, Lisa has taken to pushing me to spend a lot of my time with her. This has only worsened during the pandemic, plus the fact that I don't really see her as a sister or friend, more like a housemate. We didn't interact much when I was living with my mom because my dad would always take me out when I visited him. College decisions and financial aid have all come in, and I got into my first choice school with enough aid that I can graduate debt-free with my mom's family support. I absolutely love this school and its culture. I really clicked with it when I visited. Jan, however, only feels comfortable going to the state school, which is great for her major that I also got into. Since finding out that I also got into state, Jan and Lisa have started talking about the future as if we're going to go to school together and live together at school. When I told them that I got into and plan on going to my first choice, they exploded. Lisa said I was abandoning Jan, and Jan has started crying a lot about not knowing anyone in college. Lisa said that if I didn't go to state with Jan, she and my dad would cut off financial support for college. I told her that my grandparents are paying. I got angry and said that if she cuts me off, I can write a kick-ass essay about her cutting me off for more outside scholarships. Last weekend, I went over to my grandparents' house, told them about getting into FC, accepted the admission, and we ate ice cream. I went home and told my dad's family over dinner, and now Lisa's become extremely passive-aggressive about me not supporting family, and Jan just cries and pleads me to change my mind. My dad says that I should take back my commitment and lose $750 and commit to state to keep the peace at home. I might be the a-hole because I know Jan will have a hard time adjusting to college without any familiarity, and that me being there would help her, but I flat out refused without really talking to them about it. I also don't want to be around Jan forever. Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. You are not Jan's parent. She is not your responsibility. You are responsible for your own future, and you have done a great job at getting yourself on the right track. Your stepmother was awful to try and make you responsible for her daughter, and to try to, mistakenly, hold money and your education over your head to try and make you bend to her will. I wish I could have seen her face when you told her that she had no power there. Your father has failed you as a parent. He should not be making you forfeit your future and freedom to keep the peace. He should be standing up to his wife for the benefit of his daughter. Also, it is laughable to me that none of these people apparently had any idea of how your college finances were actually going to work. I'm glad your grandparents and mother, I'm so sorry for your loss, at least were looking out for you. Get out of that house as soon as you can and never look back. Good luck in college. Lisa and Dad didn't know about the money because all the financial aid apps only ask for parent assets, so they thought they would be financing college for me. Lisa's face turned a little purple when she found out she wouldn't be. Excellent. But hey, bright side, they can spend the money they would have spent on you to hire a therapist for Jan. Because I honestly feel sorry for her, and they are not doing her any favors with their current behavior. There is an extremely unhealthy codependency issue going on here, and her parents enabling it is not going to do Jan any favors. What do they expect? For Opie and her stepsister to just never be apart again for their whole lives? Jan needs to learn how to cope. And I get that anxiety sucks, but she can't just rely on Opie forever. Not an a-hole. It's your future, and it's a choice you appear to have both the financial support for and the actual support from your grandparents. When you turn 18, you are an adult and responsible for yourself. My suggestion would be to talk with your grandparents about the possibility of you living with them on school breaks. Also, whether in your later years at college, they'd help you get your own apartment rather than living in the dorms. Also, your stepmom has done an enormous disservice to Jan here by allowing her to use you as an emotional crutch. It's dysfunctional that they're pushing you to attend college with Jan because of her anxiety and issues. If they're that bad, she should have been working with a therapist and possibly on anxiety meds already. Edit. Wow, I honestly didn't expect this to blow up so much. I'm sorry that I haven't been able to reply to many people, but I'm definitely reading through all the comments. Thank you so much for your support. I've been talking to my school and grandparents this week and will hopefully figure something out. So far, I've been able to mostly avoid Dad, Lisa, and Jan by staying in my room. I will definitely be sitting down and talking with them this weekend after I gather my thoughts, and I'm able to go into the conversation with a clear agenda. Now for the next story. Am I the a-hole for telling my dad his mistake isn't my problem to fix? I, 20 female, live about 2 hours from my dad. My dad and mom divorced when I was 9. We were married when I was 14, and by then, I mostly live with my mom. My younger brother, 16 male, and sister, 17 female, lived mostly there too. Then our mom died a year and a half ago, and they moved to our dad's. Our dad has younger step kids, ages 7 to 11, and I never really had much of a relationship with them. When I see my dad, I am kind. I treat them the same as my siblings. But to me, it isn't really the same, and I do make much more of an effort with my siblings. Which makes sense to me. I usually see them once or twice a month, and we go watch a movie or go shopping and generally hang out. They've been to my apartment a few times too. So my dad ended up mentioning them sleeping at my place next month in front of his step kids. And according to my siblings, the younger kids got upset and asked why they didn't get to go. And his wife was pissed that not only did he bring it up in front of her kids, but she didn't know they actually stayed over at my place sometimes. Now he's getting flack because I don't make the same effort across all the kids. And he wanted me to fix it by including all the kids this time around and making the same effort going forward. I told him it wasn't my problem to fix, and I would keep being kind and inclusive when I see them, but I'm more comfortable with my siblings. I have a relationship with them, which isn't really there with the step kids. I never lived with them and never had a sibling dynamic with them. He got mad and told me I could help him make up for his mistake and make everyone happier by including them. My sister jumped in and said it wouldn't make them happier. They are usually glad of the break from the younger kids, especially after being cooped up with them for months during lockdown. He brought up how helping family should be important. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. It's your apartment. Your dad doesn't get to decide who you host there. Plus, at your step-sibling's ages, you'd be babysitting more than anything. Is he going to pay for that? Exactly. Not the a-hole. You don't have to have all the kids over. That's a lot of stress, and it makes sense to only include your siblings because they're older and can look after themselves. Also, these kids are basically strangers to you. Not the a-hole. Sometimes in a blended family, siblings just aren't as close as parents want them to be. My stepbrother didn't even come to my wedding, but my stepmom holds this desperate idea that we are one big happy family when we just aren't. There's nothing wrong with not being close to step-siblings, and it's not your job to make your dad's mistake all better. You're not mean to the other kids, but you were never raised with them. If your dad hadn't married their mom, you would never have known them or been friends with them. They really aren't that much your family either. So why spend the time and money for a relationship you aren't interested in cultivating? Sometimes in a traditional family this happens too. I don't understand why people, most often parents, think they have the right to dictate the terms of someone else's relationships. They can mandate a level of behavior, that is, prevent disrespectful/bullying behavior, but that's it. Not the a-hole. I'm a stepmom, and I wouldn't dream of pressuring my oldest stepkid to look after his younger siblings, especially for a sleepover, if he didn't feel comfortable, because he's not their parent, and it's not his responsibility to do this if he doesn't want to. Ages 7 to 11 plus 2 teens is a lot of work even for bio parents. Why on earth would your dad and stepmom ask you to take them all for a sleepover? That's 4 to 5 kids for a 20-year-old to look after. For a whole weekend? Not cool to ask this of you at all. Sounds like your dad and stepmom want a weekend off from all kids and are shoving this onto you. Next story is titled, Am I the a-hole for not wanting to give up our baby moon location for my sister? My wife is due in about a month, and we've been wanting to have a little getaway together. Work has been chaotic for us both, so we never got the chance to have time off until now. I've requested 4 days off next week, and we'll be going to our nice little beach house. We've really been looking forward to having this alone time together and get away from everything before our son gets here. It's close to the small town with a nice day spa and other places to check out, so we're pretty excited. A few days ago, my sister married her husband. No wedding, just a courthouse type thing online or something like that. Anyways, they really want to go on their honeymoon, and conveniently, they want to use our beach house next week because her husband is going on a work trip, won't be back until middle of May, I believe. I told her they can go before us, but they'll have to be gone by Thursday because that's when we arrive. Their issue is work, and they only have next weekend free. I had to tell her no then, because we want to use all 4 days. I have already requested these days off from work and can't just change it last minute. But they really want to have their honeymoon before her husband has to leave, so she's mad now that we don't want to give up our place when we can go on vacation any other time. And yes, she's right. But since I can't miss work, aside from the days I asked to have off, the next time we get to take a mini vacation will probably be after our son is born. The whole point is we'd like our last alone time now. Sister has been extremely angry at us over this since they want to have a nice honeymoon before he leaves. Are we being a-holes? Now for the top comments. Not an a-hole. Is your beach house the only one in a 100-mile radius? Tell them to rent one themselves. To piggyback on this, are they mad because they want a free vacation? I mean, surely there are other places to go close by. Your sister doesn't really have a leg to stand on here. You planned a vacation at your beach house for you. She had an unplanned wedding and wants a free honeymoon at your house. That's not how vacations work. You don't get to kick the owners out at your whim. I hope her husband fully understands this entitlement and isn't feeding it. Stand your ground. Enjoy your baby moon. It's the best thing you can do at this stage. Not a day-hole. Yep, she wants the free vacation. OP, if you are feeling generous and your sister and her husband can't afford to go anywhere and that is the issue, I suppose you can ask if you don't know, you could offer to contribute some amount towards a weekend away as a wedding gift, so that they can afford to rent somewhere. Or if you are generous and passive-aggressive instead of asking, you could just say, I'm sorry, the beach house is in use on these dates. It's too short notice for me to reschedule my time off work. In the future, if you are hoping to use our beach house, please ask in advance to make sure you aren't disappointed. Since you and your husband just got married, wife and I discussed and decided to gift you X dollars as a wedding gift in hopes this helps you afford a weekend away you were planning. Not a day-hole. Your plans for your beach house predate her demands for your beach house. And she has a hell of a lot more flexibility than a couple with an impending newborn. Her entitlement and a-holery is astounding. Tell her it is your property, so for her it is May, which is only a month's wait. I mean, come on. Or never. And if she keeps pushing, it will be never. Not day-hole. Hope you have a good baby moon and good luck with the birth. Agreed. And delaying the honeymoon only a month or two is nothing. Plenty of couples do that voluntarily because that's just how timing and / or budget worked out. Heck, there are couples who got married last year who are just now planning honeymoons as vaccinations happen and travel opens up. The sister can find another hotel, or she can simply wait until her husband returns and can take a little time off. The last story is titled, Am I the a-hole for visiting my aunt against my mother's orders as it upsets my stepsister? I, 16 female, don't know how to summarize it, but I'll try. My parents divorced about 5 years ago. My father remarried a year after divorce and I now have a 1-year-old half-sister. My mother remarried a little before COVID, and I have a stepsister, Jazz, 11 female, whose mother passed away when she was 8. I get along with my father's side, with stepmother and baby sister, but cannot get along with my new stepfather and stepsister. With me so far? I hope. The reason I don't get along with Jazz is because she likes to act up, and I cannot deal with her when she does. The adults aren't helping either. I have to think before speaking to her, else she may spin up some wild tales to complain and cry buckets of tears. She's very sensitive, and I have learned to avoid her as much as possible. My mother always told me to be understanding because she has a traumatic past, and that she's still getting used to our new family, getting counseled and such. I had to hold back my anger when she destroys my things, being a witch to me and my mother, and her father would just pretend he is not there whenever she loses her temper. Lucky for me, during my stay with my mother, I still have my aunt who stays nearby, and I would visit her whenever I have the time and occasionally stay over for the weekends. She would bring me out for shopping and buy me things in the past, and is a very cool person in general. She is busier now, but still always have time for me, and even gave me her spare key so that I can go to her place even when she's not home. My mother had an argument with my aunt a week ago, and she now forbids me going to her because it upsets Jazz. That witch went crying to her father, and my mother's saying she feels unfair that I have an aunt who spoils me while she has nobody to turn to. My mother got the nerve to ask my aunt to buy things for Jazz too, and she refused, and that was why they quarreled, and then I was forbidden to visit her anymore. So I went visiting my aunt anyway, even after being told not to, and then my mother got very angry at me, saying that I'm being a selfish brat with no consideration for my sister, while Jazz giggled behind her. I told her, out loud with Jazz listening, that I only have one sister and that is my baby sister on my father's side. I don't give a crap what Jazz feels, and I will still be going to my aunt. And there is nothing stopping me from doing so. What can she do? Lock me up? Is it even legal? Confiscate my phone? My dad bought it. Kick me out? I wish. So I am at my aunt's house again, with my mother texting me how I upset Jess as she had a meltdown again. My aunt said she doesn't mind me staying over, but I should make it up with them later as it is not good for long term. She showed me her phone too, and I could see that my mother and other aunt, youngest, is blaming her for what I did, and I feel sorry for her. But not for that little turd Jazz. So am I the a-hole for openly defying my mother on this? Edit. My aunt is my mother's younger sister. She lives alone, and I sometimes stay over for a bit whenever I fight with Jazz, or with my mother/stepfather over Jazz. I'm not sure if I can live with her for long because it was never brought up, but she gave me her spare keys and said I can go to her place whenever I want. Jazz is currently under counseling, or therapy, some of you call it. I'm not sure if she is making progress, but she hasn't changed much. I would love to live with my father, but he is currently living with my stepmother's parents because one of them is sick, and I don't really want to disturb them right now. At the very least, at my mother's side, I can get to look for my aunt. Not an a-hole. Your aunt is right that you've got to find a long-term solution. That solution should take realities into account. Your stepsister shouldn't get all the priority, and just because your stepsister doesn't have a cool aunt doesn't mean that you should stop seeing yours. OP this. Have a talk with your blended family. Don't swear. Use phrases like, I'm not willing to set clear boundaries. And if that doesn't work, start throwing temper tantrums every time. Jazz attempts to. Be faster than her. And louder. Make sure everyone knows how messed up the situation is. Not an a-hole. And I would personally advise you keep calling Jazz out, in front of her, and in front of your mother and stepfather. Your silence further enables it to continue. It is within your power to say something. So say it, and say it loud. Don't let them misdirect this towards your aunt. Be very clear. The issue here is a spoiled 11-year-old, who you are allowing to negatively impact my life. It is not my aunt. If you want to have me as a daughter in a few years' time, then maybe you need to act like you are my mother and care about my happiness. Be clear, direct, specific, and most importantly, refuse to apologize for what you said. I meant every word. Maybe you should think about why I feel that way. Keep it up. Good luck. Not an a-hole. Try this with your mother. Jazz losing a female figure in her life doesn't mean you need to make me lose one to keep it fair. I have sympathy for all Jazz has gone through, but expecting me to experience the feelings of loss, neglect, and unsafety to make up for her trauma is simply not sustainable. Her using you to hurt me just results in both of us being hurt. Am I the a-hole for refusing to take my nieces/nephews out to fun places anymore since my sister won't help with the bill? My little sister has 6 kids, 10 male, 7 female, 6 female plus 6 female, 4 male and 2 female, who I love and babysit when I can. I'm child-free, and my husband and I have a decent amount of fun money saved for us to spend on whatever we want. And I'd use mine sometimes to take my nibblings fun places. I still take them all out somewhere at least 2 to 3 times a month. Now, when it was just the oldest, I'd take him for a day to give my sister and brother-in-law a break. I'd take him to museums, fairs, kids' play places, Chuck E. Cheese, amusement park, etc. With just one kid, it was pretty easy to do. Then the second oldest came along, and I was still able to swing it. But then with the addition of the twins, it became harder to afford. Not to mention watching 4 kids is way harder than watching one. By the time the 4-year-old came around, I couldn't afford to take them all to the same places anymore. It cost too much. So I started taking them cheaper/free places, like the park, free kids' days at the museum, the mall, swimming at my house, etc. Now with the 2-year-old, I've totally stopped taking them anywhere that costs more than a couple bucks each. But last week when I was dropping the kids off at my sister's place, they all just asked if we could go to the fair next month. I didn't think I'd be able to afford that, but didn't want to outright say no, so I told him I wasn't sure, but would see. After the kids ran off, my sister asked why I wasn't sure about the fair, and I told her I didn't think I'd be able to afford tickets and food for 7 people. She said it couldn't cost that much, so I told her that each ticket was about $10 the last time we'd gone, and that wasn't counting the money spent on food. I said I'd be happy to take them all to the fair if she paid for at least the tickets. She went off saying that she and brother-in-law didn't have that kind of money, how they had 8 mouths to feed and clothes to buy, and she couldn't waste money on the fair. I asked why she thought I was made of money, and she said I had more money than them. And it's not like I have 6 kids to care for. I told her I loved taking the kids out, but if she couldn't help with paying for the expensive places, then the kids would have to be content with going to the park or swimming at my house. Sister said I'm a huge a-hole. And when I told our parents, they said it was sorta a-holish since I only take them out a couple times a month instead of caring for them 24/7 like my sister. So now I don't know. Hub says I'm not the a-hole, but I don't know. I mean, yeah, I could swing taking them all to the fair, but it's just so expensive. Am I the a-hole for asking for help paying? Now for the top comments before reading Opie's little update. Not the a-hole. So if she can't afford places like the fair because of having 8 mouths to feed, why does that responsibility have to fall on you? She's being entitled instead of grateful that you've done as much as you have all these years. Being child-free doesn't mean to have all this disposable income to spend on other people's kids, no matter how much you may love them. Not the a-hole. Opie, you take your nieces and nephews out 2 to 3 times a month, which is far more than most aunts and uncles do. And rather than be grateful, your sister is demanding you do more. Your sister is quick to count and spend your money. I think you've found a very wise solution to continue spending treasured time with your nieces and nephews without breaking the bank. You've done nothing wrong at all. It's your sister who's being an unreasonable a-hole. I grew up very close to my aunt and uncle, and some of my fondest memories with them are from when one or both of them babysat us at their house while my parents were both at work. Mom was a part-time worker, so it only happened occasionally that her and my dad's shifts lined up like that, and we'd spend time with them. My brother and I would play ball hockey in the basement with my cousin. We'd play GameCube, etc. They don't need to be taken to expensive places to create a strong relationship and happy memories with you. The fact that you want to be so present in their lives is amazing. Trust me, my aunt and uncle passed away now, but I will always have my love and memories with them. And your nieces and nephews will too, whether you paid to take them somewhere or not. Definitely not the a-hole here. Not the a-hole. If your sister doesn't have that kind of money, maybe they should stop having children. I'd have stopped at the same point as you. I wouldn't be willing to look after 4 kids even if the tickets were paid for. She should be grateful you're essentially offering free childcare. This. So not only is Opie babysitting 6 children for free, but must also be willing to spend $100 plus as well? 6 kids at the fair may cost $70 to get in, but fair food is also expensive. Plus, I can't even imagine the stress of juggling 6 kids at the fair. Bathrooms alone would be a nightmare. Update. I want to thank everyone for all the amazing comments and DMs. After all the resounding not the a-hole comments, I've come to the conclusion that I'd become used to my family's treatment of me over the years. I'd always been aware it wasn't really fair, but I put up with it to keep the peace and see my nibblings regularly. But I can't keep spending such outrageous amounts of money on kids that aren't even mine anymore. Especially when I'm not even getting a half-assed thank you in return. It's not fair to me. So I called my sister and told her I won't be taking her kids out for fun days for the foreseeable future. I told her that she's been really entitled to expect me to foot the bill to babysit her kids, and if she apologizes sincerely, then I might start taking them out again sometime in the future. But for now, I'm gonna keep my distance. She didn't take it well, and called me a lot of hurtful names before hanging up on me. Not long after, Mom called me and told me I was being selfish and rude. But I snapped at her that she was being rude, expecting me to pay upwards of hundreds of dollars a month for kids that I didn't give birth to while cuddling my sister was horrible parenting. And I said how sick and tired I was of being treated like free babysitting for my sister just because I never popped out any grandkids for them. And if she and my sister thought taking all the kids out 3 times a month was no big deal, then I'll send her the bill. Which I did. I sent her pictures of the receipts from the last 3 places I took my nieces/nephews, each one being no less than $70. She hasn't called or texted me back. I'll just see what happens. But thanks, everyone. Now for the next story. Am I the a-hole for telling my dad to buy stepsister old consoles if he wants her to have them so bad? So I, 16 female, started babysitting 2 years ago, and then moved from that to a retail job back in October. I have saved some money and decided to indulge in getting some vintage consoles. Consoles I missed out on, but see games I want to play. I found places that sell them pretty cheap. I've always been a gamer, and it's the only passion I'm glad I can explore more than the older stuff. Ever since I got a 3DS, not one of the older consoles, but I wasn't allowed to have before, my stepsister, 14 female, has wanted to use them too. Mostly the PlayStation and Nintendo consoles. I have always said no. She's careless and demanding, and to me that's the #1 reason she isn't going to get her hands on them. One day we got into a huge fight over it, and she laid on a guilt trip about siblings always sharing, how I'm her big sister and should include her in this stuff. I told her it wasn't going to work on me. She ran to tell my dad, who has bent over backward for her since he married his wife 5 years ago, and sure enough, he tried to do the same again. He told me they weren't really mine since I was his minor kid, they were his, and he wanted me to share with her. I told him he didn't earn the money, that if he argued about him paying the bills, I could just store them until I move out. He told me to stop being a brat and stop hurting my sister's feelings. I told him if he wanted her to have an older console so much, he needed to go out and buy her one, and let her be careless with that, not with something I paid for. That way, it can be something new to add to the list of things she's broken. Both laptops for virtual learning, the remote for our main TV, the drawer to my desk, 2 of my phones, 6 of her phones, her little keepsake box that my grandparents got for each of us the year my dad married her mom, the family console, 3 discs for video games, and not forget my necklace that my mom bought for me when I was a baby. He told me I should be keeping track, and that they have always done their best to replace what was broken. I replied that he and his wife should teach her how to be less destructive, and it's not my job to do it. Then I pointed out not everything could be replaced or fixed easily. He told me I was behaving like a 6-year-old instead of a 16-year-old, and that I had no right to talk back to him. That was 3 weeks ago, and he's still mad about it. Am I the a-hole for how I talked to him? Not the a-hole. You're actually being very reasonable and articulate about the issue, and your dad is being a child. Yes, siblings normally are encouraged to share, but that's a pretty reasonable worry when the person you're sharing with doesn't have respect for someone else's things. He's mad because you're making sense. Plus, it's retro game consoles, which are like sacred. Not the a-hole. Your stepsister destroyed enough things already. You fearing she wouldn't be careful is justified. Store the things and move out. How did they replace something as precious as your mom's gift? They bought one that was like it, but it was never the same. For starters, it was from them and not my mom. I had kept that damn thing safe for 15 years, and then she decides to grab it while I was wearing it and broke the necklace. So she destroyed the necklace from your mom on purpose? Frankly, the whole siblings should always share thing is BS. You're allowed to have your own things, and to set limits in sharing with people who are careless/break stuff. Also, I don't believe for a second that your sister's both that careless and that entitled. Sounds like there's more to the story, and that most likely she's intentionally breaking things and claiming it was accidents. Breaking things during temper tantrums is still intentional. Not the a-hole. I don't think she meant to break it, but she also didn't regret breaking it either. I think she just lost her temper because she didn't get what she wanted. And yeah, but still freaking sucks, honestly. Next story is titled, Am I the a-hole for being honest about why we decided on fertility treatment over adoption? My My friends and I have always had a mostly negative view on people who exhaust themselves with doing fertility treatments when they can't have kids, instead of just adopting existing children. My husband and I ended up struggling with infertility, so we decided right away to start on adoption first. We tried both a private adoption agency and foster care, and got as far as the home study both times. Our house is old, and there are a lot of weird idiosyncrasies with the house, but we're completely up to date on electrical and plumbing codes, so we thought this would be just a formality. 2 generations of my family grew up there, and it was perfectly safe. Not to them. They had huge issues with the house. They considered 2 of the bedrooms to not be a bedroom because it was too small. They didn't like that the main level floor was uneven. We have a problem with squirrels trapping themselves in the roof somehow, and the social worker was appalled that we just let them scratch themselves out. There's nothing we can do. We don't know how they're doing it, and unless children are squirrels now, no child is getting up there to get stuck that way. It was ridiculous, but it didn't matter. The verdict from both was that our home was fundamentally unsafe. We did look into fixing it. Every single person who ever owned that home had tried to fix the things that were wrong, but we tried again. The house just couldn't be fixed to their standards without becoming actually dangerous. It was fine and safe to live in, but we also wouldn't be able to sell because it was imperfect. The verdict was that if we wanted to adopt a child, we would have to demolish our home to sell the land and then buy a new house on top of agency fees. We did the math. The truth was that, with housing prices in our area, adopting a child would actually cost us at minimum $450,000. Even if we had to do IVF surrogacy, it would only cost us about $130,000. It no longer made any sense to adopt, so we committed to doing treatments. Our total ended up being much less than that because thankfully our first round of IVF worked, and we didn't need a surrogate. We now have a child. One of our friends made a very, honestly, ignorant post about spending $100,000 on a child of your own while children sit in foster care. I decided to comment on it, telling her the full story for the first time, explaining how expensive adoption can truly be. There's been a lot of comments, and now she and some of our friends are now mad at me for making adoption look like a bad and terrible thing. I was just trying to show that there isn't one side to this, and that there are valid reasons to make both choices. Am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments. I think you and all of your friends are horrible people for sitting in judgment about how people handle their own infertility. I think you're doubly bad for not saying, I've had a change of heart after realizing there's so much I don't understand about adoption and IVF, and instead saying, you don't understand. I'm better than others who choose IVF because in my situation, it's okay. Everyone sucks here. I understand that. My opinions have changed, and I regret how ignorant I was. Everyone sucks here. You're a part of a group that habitually judges the family planning of others. You can't be surprised when they then judged you. They didn't have the life-changing experience you did, and therefore haven't changed. It sounds like you all need a wake-up call. When friendships are based on othering others in circumstances you can't imagine, they aren't healthy friendships. Think about if this group is worth your time and learn from your mistakes. I'm sorry things were so difficult for you, and hope your pregnancy goes well. A quirky little house with a squirrel attic sounds like the setting for a children's novel. Not day hall. 99% of the people who spout just adopt literally have no idea of how adoption and foster to adopt work. None. Now that you've gone through it, you know it's not the easy path that so many seem to think it is. Long story short, I had both my kids via IVF for about $5,000 out of pocket for IVF through hospital births. That $5,000 wouldn't even have covered a lawyer's retainer and a home study if we wanted to adopt. Plus, my IVF treatments involved me, my husband, and my doctor was only concerned with whether or not I could safely carry pregnancy to term. He didn't care how much I made, what kind of parent he thought I'd be, the state of my marriage, what my house looked like, what my colleagues think of me, etc. For us, IVF was by far the best option. Never judge until you've walked a mile in someone else's shoes. It was ridiculous how much cheaper everything was. I ended up being able to do a home birth with a midwife, so I didn't have the hospital bill. I had been so concerned about the cost, but it was cheaper than I've heard of some people's spontaneous hospital births being. Kind of disturbing, honestly. Now for the last story. Am I the a-hole for choosing not to follow my in-laws' naming tradition for my daughter? My husband, 24 male, and I, 24 female, had our daughter in November. Early in my pregnancy, my husband told me he would let me choose the name because he really struggled to like names, and he didn't want to make the process more complicated than it needed to me. I chose the name the day we found out she was a little girl. I told my husband, he gave me the thumbs up, and I kept it between us and my best friend who made her engraved baby blanket. Outside of that, nobody else knew. We announced her name the day after she was born. The name was controversial within my husband's family. Our daughter was the first granddaughter, and we did not go with the tradition in their family of naming the first grandson/granddaughter a specific name. To make sure I'm being clear, in my mother-in-law's family, the first male of each generation is named John, for example, and the first female is named Emily. Mother-in-law's oldest grandson is John, but our baby girl is the first granddaughter and was not called Emily. They are very hurt that I would not honor their tradition. It has become a feud because they feel like I disrespected them, and that I should have wanted my daughter to carry on a long-held family tradition that means so much to the family, and I have struggled with some guilt since. My husband told them it was our decision, and sooner or later the tradition was going to be broken, and I did nothing wrong. But my mother-in-law, and especially my oldest sister-in-law, the mother of John, have not given up. Sister-in-law claims that by using a different family middle name, a name shared by both a grandmother of his and a grandmother of mine, it was an even bigger middle finger to them. I told them she is mine and my husband's daughter, and our wishes should be respected. They claim it was still an a-hole thing. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. Repeat after me. I'm sorry you feel that way. Call us when you're over it. This. I hope no one in their family wants to document their genealogy. That would be a nightmare with all those Emilys and Johns. It also becomes a big problem in the digital age with mail, medical records, insurance, etc. Trust me, my husband's grandfather changed his name to a name he liked. Let's say Michael. Then he named his son Michael, and his daughter named her son Michael, and my husband is also Michael. Not one of them goes by Michael except on legal documents. We're constantly getting mail for each other, having to clarify records, etc. Yes, I honestly love my son's name, named the third, but using the family name was a huge mistake. Name Senior is an imprisoned child violator. Name Junior always had issues with background checks before she transitioned to female when our son was 3 years old, and then she hated constantly hearing her dead name. Not Dayhole. This entitled mentality that some family members have over their kids' lives is unbelievable. Name your child what you like and enjoy the good life. Also, congrats. Edit. I might also add that the sister-in-law is probably projecting regret that you did something she wouldn't. I just get flabbergasted that somebody can expect the name of the child can be defined like that. Not Dayhole. Why do people think that a couple's baby is somehow the possession of the whole family? This is your baby. They don't get a say, period. I can't imagine the entitlement of a family thinking they should have more say over a baby than the baby's own mother.